happy Friday. Yeah, look, I was woken up in the early hours of the morning, and the word Astarte was in my mind. And I know that word. It's one of the names for the ascended Venus, Ishtar, Inanna, Esther, all Astarte, it all means the same thing, star, the star of Venus. But I was so tired I couldn't even think what it meant. And this message came through. So this is what I'm going to be speaking on today. But first I want to speak to last week's episode about Aphrodite, who had been uncovered. I found out afterwards it was actually a few years ago that she'd been uncovered. However, it was synchronistic that a message was sent to me at that time. So, we find out about stuff when we're meant to find out about it. So, yeah, but I will check dates in future. All right, so today's episode, I'm speaking about the power of connection and communion. And the Beatles song Coming Together was sort of in my mind as I was receiving this download. And the story behind that song is that Timothy Leary, not O'Leary, who was kind of the person most associated with psychedelic trips in the 60s. He asked John Lennon if he would, write a song that tied in with his slogan, "Come Together," because he was running against Ronald Reagan and wanted support. And so John put this song together. But it's about the power of when we connect, when we come together, that's when we're powerful. And those of you that have followed me, at least for last year, you'll know that I spent my year travelling the globe doing events called Gather the Tribe, and I'm going to be doing that event here in Bali on June 22nd. I'll also be doing Raise the Vibe on June 6th if you're going to be here. But as I lay there receiving this information, I was thinking about, how is it that life is formed? It's through the coming together of opposites. And the urge to come together is the soul, the feminine part of us, because we're all feminine, masculine. The masculine is the outer, the rational, the logical, the personality, the doer in the world. The feminine part of us is the inner self, the more emotional, intuitive, creative, the inner self, the unseen self. And there's a joke which you've probably heard, which is, how do you know if a lesbian likes you? I'm totally ruining the joke. You'll see a U-Haul truck. She'll bring a U-Haul truck to the second date. And the reason that is funny is that women love to merge. Yeah, it's like if we meet someone that we like, it's like, we just want to experience that ecstatic state of communion, where our boundaries dissolve, where we enter into the oceanic consciousness of bliss, of oneness with somebody who we're in co-resonance with. And typically that is through sex. But there's many ways to do that, through creating music together, through meditating together, through sensate, touch. There's, in the West, it's often understood as, the urge to have sex. Now, in the ancient world, it was not even considered legal, a marriage, unless it was consummated. And that acknowledges the power of the act of communion, or even the ritual of communion that was appropriated by the cult of Rome, the Catholic Church. This was a much earlier rite. In fact, when I was in Crete last year doing ceremonies, I was lucky enough to go with a couple of dear brothers to an ancient temple site. And I had flashbacks. We were sitting and I was meditating in the temple area, and I saw them doing the ancient ritual of communion, which was with the grail cup, with the wine in it, and they would rip off a piece of bread, dunk it into the bread, and eat it. This was long before Christianity, and it represented the coming together of life and death. The bread, which is the staff of life, created from the seed, and the Graal, which represents the menses, the death phase of the cycle, the cup of wisdom, okay? When we drink, a cup of a ritual brew, okay, whether it's wine that has the Graal in it, or whether it's ayahuasca or kykeon, which was used before the ancient Greek Eleusinian mysteries, the ritual theatre that helped to heal the psyche. It helps to catalyse an ego death. So by imbibing the two together, it's an acknowledgement that we are saying yes to both life and death, on the understanding that they're two sides of the one coin. So what happens when we come together, when we connect, whether it's with one other person or with the divine, with nature, with a group of people? Magic happens, okay? Change happens, transformation. We step into the unknown, possibilities. We open it up, and this is why I loved facilitating circles for so many years, because it wasn't a workshop, it wasn't a talk. It was sitting in a vortex, welcoming spirit in to guide the practice, trusting that whatever needed to happen, whatever needed to be spoken would, so long as we set that intention. And it was always powerful. We'd always walk away feeling better than how we entered the circle. Everyone would feel transformed. And there's the word, transform. So by coming together, we drop into a different brain rhythm, okay? We go into more of a theta state of deep relaxation, It's like when we're in co-resonance with people, it helps to regulate our nervous system. When we're doing everything on our own, it can elevate our nervous system, because we're not meant to do everything on our own. But we've been conditioned to do that, on the thinking that if we don't do it on our own, we can't claim the full victory as ours, okay? We can't, if we acknowledge the team effort, then it's not like, we're claiming it all for the glory, okay? And the ego loves glory. It loves chasing success and fame and validation. And so when we're more polarized in the masculine and the ego, we tend to be operating in isolation because we don't want the distraction of other people. We're focused, okay? But this means that we're not opening ourselves up to great mystery or to the genius of others to help solve our obstacles. In other words, I noticed this before when I lived in Ubud, and I was told it also happens in Ibiza, and both of these are vortex towns, okay, where there's a convergence of, grid points, and the energy, people are called in and then spat out, and when you're called in, you're going to meet other people, and you're all going to help facilitate change for each other. So what happens when you're in a vortex town? Glastonbury's another one, Sedona's another one. If you persist in trying to do things in isolation, you'll find that you experience more and more stress and struggle, obstacles. And when you just let it go and go, I'm going to go into town, get something to eat, you serendipitously or synchronistically meet people that can solve the issues that you are having, okay? So, stars form by spiraling and magnetizing to them like particles. because when we're in that co-resonance, we shine brighter, okay? So too, if we want to magnify our light, if we want to accelerate our ascension, our expansion, which is what we're being called to do at this time, to make that shift from fear, being logical and rational dominant, to being loving, heart dominant, soul dominant. That's the shift between the ages, from the Piscean age of duality, okay, seeing everything in black and white, good and bad, i.e. solar plexus, lower mental, rational, to moving things up into the heart and beyond, where we're open to being fully present in the now, to the gift of anything could happen, expect the unexpected. That's the theme of the Aquarian age. So when we are fearful of change, we're fearful of other people, particularly people that are agents of change, i.e. women that are vessels for the sacred feminine, for the goddess. Because, like the saying goes, she touches, no, everything she touches changes, and everything she changes touches. I don't know if I've got that right. But anyway, the point is, the feminine is the agent of change. And so it's the feminine part of us that loves to come together in groups. In fact, it's when we're at our happiest. You think about being at a festival, being at a party, gathering together and sharing food, yeah, or sitting around a campfire, or being at a wedding. You know, this is when the soul is elevated. Yeah, we love coming together. It's really quite simple what makes us happy. And yet, the tactic of the empires to maintain control, which is the shadow masculine's sort of status quo, is to separate us and keep us in isolation, keeping us in a state of stress and struggle. So if you're somebody who, you know, tends to be a bit of a loner, this is an invitation to say, hey, make a regular time to connect. Yeah, look at what social opportunities are there for you, or even better, a held space, a space where there is a facilitator so that everyone gets equal turn to speak and be heard and seen. Because the more we have that in our lives, the happier we are. In fact, the more we have that, the more we unconsciously seek out connection, often in forums that are, you know, dysfunctional, such as going to the pub and using alcohol as a social lubricant in order to dissipate social anxiety so you can connect people but, you know, feel okay. So it was the cult of Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, that outlawed women gathering, and it's because they feared our power. And it was 500 years that mystic women were tortured and killed, primarily so that their land could be taken, because many women were title holders, widows, because their husbands had been killed in battle, and so they were an easy target, a land grab, if you will, by the empire. But it's also because our sacred power was a direct threat to the empire. So if we want to bring down the system, which is what keeps us in soul cages, it's dehumanizing, we need to gather together. And the most powerful time to gather is during the vortices of nature, particularly stargates, such as there's one coming up on the 6th of the 6th, and that's when I'll be releasing my next single, which is Alchemy Sets Us Free. And if you missed it, I released another single on Wednesday, Earth, Air, Fire, Water. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, it's on all the streaming platforms if you Google or if you search Tanishka Tantrika. And that's the song of the wild woman. But alchemy, you know, it's created through a centrifugal force. And when we come together, we create that if we have a clear group intention, one that is for the betterment of all, for the greater good. If we don't have that intention, we unconsciously create a spiral of destruction, of entropy, where the dominant ego rules and everyone creates the sort of hierarchy of pleasing the dominant ego, the top dog. And this is, what creates unsafe group dynamics. So, if you're not already doing some sort of ceremony at new moon and full moon, or during the Wheel of Eight, the seasonal vortices, or during the stargates of Lionsgate, the 8-8 every year, when we have an influx of light onto the planet, which calls us to have courage to face our fears directly so that we can transcend them and embody more love. And that's what I'm doing in Edinburgh this year. I'm facing my greatest fear of stage fright. In fact, I'm sure many of you think that I've probably had a midlife crisis, with my career changing direction from being the moon woman to being an emissary of Venus, an agent of Venus. But it's because it's time. Yeah, we're at that time of the transition phase, the phase between the Piscean age and the Aquarian age. And it's time for as many to make that shift as possible from operating from the mind, letting fear keep them small, to expanding into the light of love, doing the very thing that scares us, knowing that it will set us free. And for me, that's returning to the stage. Yeah, I was on the stage very early in life. How old was I? I think I was 4 the first time I was on stage as a manum. I got asked what I would like to be. And those of you that know Sesame Street, they're the singing cows. And then my next time on stage was dressed up as a spider, and my best friend at the time, Sarah Spencer, was Little Miss Muffet. But Spider Woman, she is the shaman. She is the agent of the goddess who weaves the web of fate, who creates. She is the one who uses the alphabet to create spells, to write a new paradigm, which is what I did for 27 years. I wrote books, and there may be more. But Spider Woman also dances the dance of the Tarantella. And this is how I awakened my Kundalini during a stargate, during Beltane, the rites of spring. And I danced and I danced and I danced, not knowing that I was dancing around a huge pyre of fire, which creates a vortex. And by dancing during a seasonal vortex around this pyre of fire, so much energy was being generated that I went into a trance state. I embodied the archetypal Spider Woman, and that's when my consciousness opened and I remembered who I'd been going back to Mesopotamia. And then I started immediately channeling and teaching what I'd taught all those years ago, in other lifetimes, also in Avalon. So, I'm calling people to gather with me because we're coming up to a very powerful portal this year on the 8th of the 8th. In fact, it's a triple 8 portal. And 88 was the number of the ascended Venus, which is why in Mesopotamia, Venus's number was 88. And this is because that's how energy flows. It's the infinity sign. And in numerology, it's the number of abundance and power. So we have an opportunity to gather in Edinburgh, which Edinburgh, I found out only last week, is a convergence of ley lines, of dragon lines. It's a Grail power site. So to be there, to be part of this celebration of the return of Venus from the underworld, to celebrate all the work we've privately done, going willingly into the shadows of our wounds and knowing that enough of us have done this, that now together we can be midwives, raising the energy of love, loving wisdom, the wisdom of the mystic feminine in both men and women, in the world soul. And what is the world soul? Well, when we're an ego, we only see separation. It's like, this is mine, this is my identity. But when we're soul dominant, we see our identity as part of something greater, part of the global family, part of the Gaia consciousness, Mother Earth, part of the galactic community. So when we make the shift from being in service to self to being in service to the all, we become part of a huge vortex for positive social change. And the more we can inspire people to be part of this rainbow family, this collective of all colours and creeds coming together in the one heart, okay? You know, I met a woman in a cafe the other week and she said, I used to think it was all love and light and I believed in oneness, but I woke up, it's not, there's darkness as well. And I said, yeah, but it's all still part of the one, yeah? Our shadow is as great a teacher as our light. And we all have equal propensity for light and dark. Our challenge as the mystic is to integrate them both. So when we do that, we can see the divine in everything and not polarize into trying to be good to earn, favor with our projection of the divine as being all light and pure. The divine is Zen, the divine is everything. We are always learning through every experience, whether it's a horrible experience or an ecstatic experience, yeah? The divine is loving wisdom, which permeates everything in existence. And the more we bow our ego to that, the more we see the blessing and the lesson in everything. And we can be an agent of Venus, an agent of change, of loving wisdom. So, I would love dearly, if it speaks to your heart, to gather with me, maybe to inspire people locally as a community vortex to come with you, knowing the more the merrier. The more of us who gather, the more we create what's called a happening. Okay, in the 60s, everyone was always, trying to create a happening. In other words, something that was bringing people together, because this is when we saw the return of the feminine during that cusp period between the ages. And the 60s was like the trailer for the Aquarian age. It was just a glimpse of what we're now coming into. Yeah, you can see bohemian fashions, you can see, the relaxing of laws around hemp and CBD products. You can see people wanting to explore the mystic realm, altered states of consciousness. This is all the feminine. It's about stepping into the unknown, yeah, and risking change. And the only way we have growth is if we risk change, yeah? If we are in the shadow masculine, we will be avoidant of people, of intimacy, of social groups. We will keep to ourselves where we have more control, where we can be rigid, where we can do what we've always done, like a machine. But this is not where true joy and happiness lies. So I hope these words speak to your soul. I know that we have been conditioned in the last few years to fear each other, to keep to ourselves. But this is because the powers that have dominated and controlled us and kept us separate are most afraid of the power we generate when we come together. So if you want to bring real people power, positive social change to this beautiful garden planet, please gather during the portals. And I would dearly love you to gather with me during the Stargate portal and celebrate the return of Venus, knowing that she lives in all of us. We are all vessels for her when we live from the heart, where we dare to do the thing that, makes us look foolish to other people. Yeah, I'm sure many of you think I'm having a midlife crisis at the moment. What does she think she's doing? Does she think she's, a rock star or something? I'm just doing what it is my heart is compelling me to do. And it may not make sense until after the fact. But all I know is how it's making me feel. I'm feeling lit up, I'm feeling alive, and I'm feeling aligned with that greater power which is asking me to make some really big, bold changes. So for those of you who are resistant to the Moon Woman and changing, and I see the engagement I get when I post old content and when I post new content. I know a lot of you are struggling with the change, but allow yourself to be excited by the possibility, even if you don't understand it. It's like in the tarot, the death card, which is my life path, which is the harbinger of change, is greeted by children. The children give the bone skeleton person, the archetypal shaman, the agent of change, they greet that person with gifts because they love change. They're so excited for change. But as we get older, we fear change. Yeah, we don't want to be visited by Bone Woman or Bone Man, the shaman. We hide away. But it is what will set us free. So I hope this is a timely message for you. If it resonates, you have my blessing to share it. And I'll share links to Yantra if you feel to come and join the Butterfly Club and be part of the celebration of Venus's return from the underworld. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.